The origins of Nuka-Cola trace back to the early 21st century in the United States, a period characterized by technological optimism, consumer expansion, and a burgeoning fascination with soda culture that mirrored the country's pre-war economic boom, where entrepreneurs sought not merely to quench thirst, but to create lifestyle symbols and cultural phenomena. And among these visionaries, Earl Cole emerged as the pivotal figure whose ingenuity and ambition would define the Nuka-Cola legacy, a man whose background in food science and marketing uniquely positioned him to seize upon the nation's growing appetite for mass-produced soft drinks and carbonated refreshments, at a time when cola beverages were rapidly evolving from regional curiosities into national obsessions. And Cole's insight lay not only in recognizing the commercial potential of carbonated drinks, but in understanding the psychological appeal of branding, the creation of a product identity that transcended the simple act of consumption, giving people something to believe in, something to aspire toward, something to carry with them as a symbol of pre-war American ingenuity and optimism. And it was in the modest town of Los Angeles, California, that Cole, in collaboration with chemists and beverage specialists, first began experimenting with flavor profiles, carbonation levels, and proprietary formulas that would eventually culminate in the original Nuka-Cola, a drink distinguished by its balance of sweetness, effervescence, and subtle secret ingredients that remained closely guarded by the company for decades. And these early experiments were not conducted in isolation, but against the backdrop of a rapidly industrializing food and beverage sector, where technological advancements in bottling, refrigeration, and mass distribution allowed for unprecedented scalability, giving Cole the confidence to envision a product that could saturate not just local markets, but eventually become a household name across the entire United States. A vision that aligned perfectly with the nation's mid-century cultural shift toward consumerism and the idolization of branded products, where having a favorite soda was as much a social statement as it was a matter of taste. And in this environment, Cole demonstrated not merely technical skill, but remarkable foresight, understanding that the appeal of a beverage was inseparable from its narrative, from the way it was presented, advertised, and imagined in the minds of consumers. And so he enlisted a cadre of artists, illustrators, and marketing experts to craft the now iconic Nuka-Cola logo, a vibrant red script that would become immediately recognizable, a symbol designed to evoke energy, excitement, and the optimism of a nation still reveling in the promise of technological progress and post-war prosperity. And the marketing strategy for Nuka-Cola was revolutionary for its time, employing radio jingles, billboards, magazine ads, and even early television spots to create a sense of ubiquity and desirability, framing the act of drinking Nuka-Cola as a participation in a modern, forward-looking lifestyle, one that promised not just refreshment, but cultural alignment with a society on the brink of atomic-age innovation. And alongside this cultural positioning, Cole's scientific team worked tirelessly to perfect the formulation, experimenting with carbonated water, sweeteners, flavor extracts, and natural and synthetic additives to achieve a flavor profile that was at once familiar and uniquely distinguishable, resulting in a beverage that could be described as effervescent yet smooth, sweet without being cloying, and versatile enough to be enjoyed both at home and in the expanding landscape of diners, soda fountains, and entertainment venues that defined mid-century America. And the careful attention to both science and presentation reflected a broader corporate philosophy that would define Nuka-Cola throughout its existence. The idea that a soft drink was not merely a consumable, but an experience, a product intertwined with emotion, memory, and identity. And this philosophy extended into early production methods, where bottling plants were designed not just for efficiency but for quality control, ensuring consistent carbonation, flavor stability, and visual appeal. And these facilities became showcases of industrial modernity, blending functional design with public-facing demonstrations that allowed consumers to witness the process of their favorite beverage being made, thereby fostering trust, loyalty, and a sense of connection between the company and the population. And as Nuka-Cola's presence expanded, so too did the lore surrounding its creation, with tales of Earl Cole's relentless experimentation, late nights in the lab, and obsessive pursuit of the perfect blend, becoming part of the mythos that surrounded the brand. Stories recounted in advertisements, company memoirs, and consumer anecdotes that collectively elevated Nuka-Cola from a mere soft drink to a cultural icon. And these narratives were carefully cultivated, recognizing that the power of myth-making could amplify brand loyalty, a strategy that proved enormously effective in a society increasingly saturated with consumer options and competing sodas. And by the time Nuka-Cola reached national prominence, it was not merely competing on taste or availability, but on the strength of its story, its capacity to represent the promise of innovation, the excitement of the new, and the comforting familiarity of a product whose identity was inseparable from the larger narrative of American progress. And yet, the origins of Nuka-Cola were also marked by subtle scientific daring, as Cole's team explored additives that would eventually become legendary within the Fallout universe, including compounds that influenced the drink's color, effervescence, and even the later development of Nuka-Cola Quantum, laying the groundwork for innovations that would not fully manifest until decades later. And all of this occurred against a backdrop of societal optimism and impending geopolitical tension, a time when the United States was simultaneously reaching technological heights and unknowingly edging toward the catastrophic events of the Great War. And the creation of Nuka-Cola, in this sense, serves as both a testament to human ingenuity and a poignant reminder of pre-war cultural values, where optimism, consumption, and technological confidence coexisted with an undercurrent of fragility for every bottle of Nuka-Cola carried within it, not just sugar and carbonation, but the reflection of a world poised on the brink of transformation, a world in which a soft drink could become a symbol of progress, a marker of identity, and ultimately, a relic that would survive the apocalypse, to remain cherished by Wastelanders for generations to come. And thus, the origins of Nuka-Cola encapsulate a uniquely Fallout narrative, the merging of science, marketing, culture, and myth into a singular product that transcended its material purpose, establishing a foundation that would allow it to endure long after the fall of civilization, embedding itself into the collective consciousness of both pre-war and post-war America, and setting the stage for the myriad flavors, marketing campaigns, societal roles, and cultural impacts that would define Nuka-Cola as not merely a beverage, but a cornerstone of the world's history, economy, and mythology within the Fallout universe, ensuring that the legacy of Earl Cole's creation would remain, centuries later, an indelible emblem of a bygone era, celebrated, collected, and endlessly speculated upon by generations of those who came to regard it as far more than a drink, but as an enduring symbol of ingenuity, ambition, and the enduring human desire to craft something memorable, something unifying, and something that, in its very essence, encapsulated the spirit of an entire civilization on the edge of annihilation. The rise of Nuka-Cola from a regional curiosity to the preeminent soft drink of the United States represents one of the most remarkable examples of brand ascension in the pre-war era, a period defined by intense consumer competition, technological innovation, and the consolidation of mass media, which together created an environment where products were not merely sold but culturally embedded, and in this context, Nuka-Cola's popularity was not a matter of chance but the result of deliberate corporate strategy, scientific innovation, and a profound understanding of consumer psychology. For Earl Cole and his successors recognized early that the appeal of a beverage extended far beyond taste, encompassing presentation, accessibility, and the emotional resonance of the brand, and by the 2050 seconds, Nuka-Cola had achieved a level of ubiquity that was unparalleled in the beverage industry, appearing in diners, soda fountains, and supermarkets from coast to coast, its distinctive red and white bottles instantly recognizable, and its flavor profile carefully calibrated to appeal to a broad audience. A balance of sweetness, carbonation, and the subtle, secretive ingredients that gave it a uniquely satisfying character. And central to this ascent was Nuka-Cola's marketing approach, which leveraged emerging forms of mass communication, including radio, television, print advertising, and sponsorship of public events, crafting a cultural presence that associated the product not only with refreshment, but with modernity, optimism, and the aspirational values of post-war American society. And these campaigns were meticulous in their design, with jingles, slogans, and imagery that reinforced the brand's identity, employing cheerful mascots, patriotic symbolism, and imagery of youthful vitality to create a sense of belonging and desirability, encouraging consumers to perceive Nuka-Cola as an essential component of their daily lives. And this popularity was further amplified by the company's willingness to innovate in both product development and marketing strategy, releasing a variety of flavors such as Nuka Cherry, Nuka-Cola Quantum, and limited edition bottles, each accompanied by elaborate promotional campaigns that heightened consumer anticipation and reinforced brand loyalty, while also exploiting the psychological appeal of scarcity and collectability, turning a simple beverage into a cultural event. And this tactic was especially effective in cultivating a sense of community among fans, who would exchange bottles, discuss flavors, and participate in contests and sweepstakes sponsored by the company, thereby embedding Nuka-Cola into social networks and creating a self-perpetuating cycle of consumption and engagement. And beyond consumer culture, the popularity of Nuka-Cola intersected with technological advancements in bottling, refrigeration, and distribution, which allowed the company to ensure consistent quality, expand production capacity, and reach increasingly distant markets, transforming what had begun as a local beverage into a national phenomenon. And the company's investment in state-of-the-art bottling plants, logistics, and quality control exemplified a broader trend in corporate America, where scientific precision and industrial efficiency were leveraged to dominate markets. And Nuka-Cola's approach to production became as legendary as its marketing, with tours, demonstrations, and public engagement further cementing its status as an icon. And simultaneously, Nuka-Cola became more than a product. It became a symbol of the pre-war American ethos, representing progress, optimism, and the promise of technological mastery, a cultural marker that transcended the beverage itself. And this cultural significance was carefully cultivated by the company, which actively sponsored community events, parades, and celebrations, associating the drink with moments of national pride and personal achievement, while also leveraging celebrity endorsements and cross-promotions with entertainment media to create a perception of omnipresence, making Nuka-Cola not merely a beverage choice, but a statement of social identity and modernity. And the company's executives recognized that the emotional attachment to the product was as valuable as any monetary profit, investing heavily in narrative construction, brand storytelling, and symbolic imagery that would resonate with consumers across generations, fostering a sense of loyalty that would endure even beyond the catastrophic events of the Great War. And Nuka-Cola's influence extended into the social and cultural fabric of the nation, shaping the behavior, preferences, and rituals of everyday life, from school lunches to office breaks, from family gatherings to public celebrations. As individuals integrated the beverage into the routines and traditions of daily existence, and the product's presence was so pervasive that it became intertwined with notions of personal memory, nostalgia, and shared cultural experience, elevating it to the level of iconography, a touchstone of collective identity that prefigured the post-apocalyptic reverence it would later receive. And the company's strategic expansion into themed experiences, such as branded soda fountains, promotional merchandise, and eventually the Nuka-World amusement parks, reinforced this dominance, creating immersive environments that encouraged consumption, reinforced brand narratives, and provided tangible experiences that linked the product to pleasure, excitement, and social interaction, while also demonstrating an early understanding of experiential marketing in which the act of consumption was inseparable from the cultural and emotional experience of engagement with the brand. And alongside these cultural innovations, the rise of Nuka-Cola was also facilitated by broader societal trends, including urbanization, rising disposable income, and the proliferation of leisure time, all of which created fertile ground for the consumption of soft drinks as both sustenance and recreation, and in turn, Nuka-Cola became a marker of modern living, a commodity that signaled participation in contemporary culture, technological sophistication, and alignment with national optimism, and by embedding itself in the collective consciousness through careful marketing, cultural integration, and product innovation, Nuka-Cola achieved a level of popularity that transcended mere commercial success, becoming a symbol of pre-war America itself, celebrated in advertisements, popular media, and everyday life, recognized not just for its taste, but for its cultural significance. And this ascendancy laid the foundation for its enduring legacy in the post-apocalyptic world, as the brands, flavors, and iconic bottles that once symbolized progress and prosperity would become highly sought-after relics, coveted for their historical, cultural, and practical value in the Wasteland. And the meteoric rise of Nuka-Cola thus illustrates the intricate interplay between innovation, marketing, societal trends, and consumer psychology, demonstrating how a product can achieve not only widespread adoption, but a lasting cultural footprint, influencing behavior, identity, and social dynamics, creating a brand mythology so deeply embedded that even centuries later, amidst the ruins of civilization, the name Nuka-Cola evokes memories of a world defined by optimism, creativity, and the pursuit of shared cultural pleasure, a testament to the company's vision, strategic execution, and the resonance of its product in the hearts and minds of generations. And ultimately, the rise of Nuka-Cola exemplifies how a simple beverage, when crafted with attention to science, narrative, and consumer experience, can transform into a cultural cornerstone, an enduring symbol of an era, and a legacy that transcends its material composition to become a defining element of society itself. A phenomenon that would carry forward into the post-apocalyptic imagination and cement Nuka-Cola as the quintessential emblem of pre-war Americana. The diverse array of Nuka-Cola flavors and variants stands as a testament to the company's relentless innovation, marketing acumen, and understanding of consumer desire, demonstrating a commitment not only to the creation of a universally appealing beverage, but also to the cultivation of brand loyalty through product diversification, a strategy that ensured Nuka-Cola remained central to American culture and pre-war society, while simultaneously creating collectible and experiential dimensions that would resonate for decades. And the genesis of these variants can be traced to the mid-21st century, when the company's research and development teams, led by Earl Cole and his successors, began experimenting with flavoring agents, carbonation levels, and secret ingredients that could differentiate their flagship product from competitors, while also responding to regional taste preferences, seasonal demands, and the evolving sophistication of consumer palates. And this period marked a notable shift in corporate strategy, wherein the product itself became a canvas for creative experimentation, a laboratory for both culinary innovation and psychological engagement. For every new flavor introduced was meticulously engineered, not just for taste, but for its ability to evoke emotional responses, enhance brand identity, and generate cultural buzz, thereby transforming the act of beverage consumption into a ritualized, almost performative experience. And among the earliest and most enduring variants was Nuka-Cola Cherry, a subtly sweetened alternative that combined the effervescent base of the original formula with a rich, cherry-infused syrup designed to appeal to those seeking novelty while remaining comfortably familiar, a flavor that would achieve iconic status and be celebrated in advertisements, limited edition promotions, and collector campaigns, establishing a model for how flavor differentiation could both satisfy consumer curiosity and reinforce brand loyalty. And, in parallel, Nuka-Cola introduced Nuka-Cola Quantum, a groundbreaking variant that would later attain legendary status due to its unique blue glow, which was the product of proprietary chemical and isotopic modifications, combining traditional flavoring with pre-war scientific experimentation that imbued the drink with radioactive luminescence, a feature that became both a technological marvel and a marketing spectacle, highlighting the company's penchant for combining science and consumer culture. And the Quantum variant exemplified how Nuka-Cola leveraged the era's fascination with atomic energy, the emerging nuclear aesthetic, and the allure of futuristic science, packaging these elements not merely as features of taste, but as components of identity, excitement, and aspirational lifestyle. And in addition to these marquee flavors, the company continually experimented with regional and limited edition variants, creating products tailored to specific markets, demographic segments, and holiday campaigns, such as Nuka-Cola Victory, a patriotic blend introduced during national celebrations, Nuka-Cola Clear, a visually striking, colorless version designed to evoke modernity and purity, and Nuka-Cola Dark, a richer, more intense formula catering to consumers with a preference for bold flavors. Each of these iterations demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of marketing, psychology, consumer behavior, and the interplay between novelty and tradition, and the proliferation of flavors also served a secondary purpose of stimulating collectability and social interaction, encouraging fans to seek out rare or exclusive editions, exchange bottles, and engage in discussions about taste, quality, and experience, thereby fostering a sense of community and participatory culture around the brand, which in turn reinforced its prominence in both domestic and national consciousness, and the variety of Nuka-Cola products extended into packaging as well, with specialized bottles, caps, and labeling designed to enhance the aesthetic appeal and distinguish each variant visually, from the luminescent blue glass of Quantum bottles to the stylized red and white script of Cherry, each iteration carefully designed to be both functional and symbolic, signaling innovation, exclusivity, and brand identity simultaneously. And in the same era, Nuka-Cola experimented with formulations that incorporated functional additives, including vitamins, stimulants, and mild energizers, designed to position the beverage not merely as refreshment, but as a functional consumer product, capable of enhancing physical performance, cognitive alertness, or social vitality, aligning with broader pre-war trends in health-conscious marketing, consumer experimentation, and lifestyle branding, and these efforts further cemented Nuka-Cola's reputation as a company willing to explore the boundaries of both flavor and science, intertwining enjoyment, utility, and spectacle into a single, cohesive consumer experience. And while the original and cherry formulas dominated the market, the continuous introduction of novel variants ensured that Nuka-Cola remained culturally relevant, strategically positioning the company to respond to evolving tastes, seasonal trends, and competitive pressures, demonstrating an adaptive capacity that would later become crucial in post-war survival and collector cultures, for the diversity of flavors not only satisfied pre-war consumers, but also created a post-apocalyptic legacy in which certain variants, such as Quantum, became legendary objects of desire due to their rarity, visual uniqueness, and in-game effects, highlighting the foresight of the company's early experiments in product differentiation. And this legacy was compounded by the meticulous documentation, promotion, and storytelling surrounding each flavor, with advertisements, manuals, and product literature carefully crafting narratives around the origins, benefits, and experiential qualities of each variant, embedding them into the broader cultural memory, while simultaneously reinforcing brand cohesion and loyalty. A strategy that underscored the interplay between product design, cultural resonance, and long-term brand sustainability. And in examining the full spectrum of Nuka-Cola variants, one observes a deliberate pattern. Each flavor, whether mainstream or limited edition, sought to balance familiarity with novelty, accessibility with aspiration, and functional appeal with emotional engagement, resulting in a product ecosystem that was both commercially effective and culturally potent, capable of influencing consumer behavior, social interaction, and even community identity as fans debated flavor hierarchies, exchanged rare bottles, and integrated the consumption of these products into rituals of everyday life, celebration, and personal expression. And this sophisticated interplay of taste, chemistry, marketing, and narrative storytelling highlights Nuka-Cola's mastery of consumer psychology, demonstrating how a single brand could create a multifaceted sensory and cultural experience, ensuring not only market dominance, but a lasting imprint on societal memory. And the legacy of these flavors and variants is perhaps most evident in the post-apocalyptic period, where scavengers, traders, and collectors prize bottles not solely for their consumable value, but for their historical, aesthetic, and functional significance, from the glow of a Nuka-Cola Quantum illuminating a ruined diner, to the nostalgic sweetness of a cherry bottle sparking memories of a world that no longer exists, illustrating how the careful engineering of flavors, combined with marketing, storytelling, and cultural embedding, produced a suite of products capable of transcending their material purpose, becoming symbols, artifacts, and cultural touchstones. And in this respect, the Nuka-Cola flavor ecosystem represents both a triumph of pre-war industrial and marketing strategy and a poignant reminder of the ways in which human creativity, consumption, and desire can shape cultural memory, social identity, and historical legacy, demonstrating that the company's dedication to variety, innovation, and narrative cohesion was not merely a commercial endeavor, but a deliberate cultural intervention that ensured Nuka-Cola would remain a defining feature of the American experience, both before and long after the cataclysm of the Great War, creating a legacy in which every bottle, flavor, and variant tells a story of ingenuity, desire, and the enduring human impulse to craft experiences that resonate across time, space, and circumstance. And thus, the canon of Nuka-Cola flavors and variants stands as a monument to the company's vision, a carefully curated symphony of taste, science, and cultural significance that continues to influence, captivate, and define the landscape of the Fallout universe, embodying the interplay of innovation, marketing, and human connection that characterizes the brand's enduring appeal and historical importance. The advertising and pop culture influence of Nuka-Cola represents one of the most compelling examples of pre-war corporate strategy, intertwined with cultural shaping, illustrating how a simple beverage transcended its material purpose to become a symbol of lifestyle, national identity, and collective imagination. And this phenomenon began in earnest as the company recognized that mass production alone could not secure market dominance, necessitating the creation of a pervasive cultural presence through carefully orchestrated advertising campaigns that leveraged every available medium, including print, radio, television, and emerging forms of interactive engagement, as the mid-21st century in the United States saw unprecedented expansion of mass media and communication technologies, providing fertile ground for companies to cultivate brand identity and emotional resonance with consumers. And Nuka-Cola, under the guidance of Earl Cole and his successors, became a master of this process, employing jingles, slogans, mascots, and imagery that were meticulously designed to evoke feelings of optimism, energy, and modernity, while simultaneously associating the act of consumption with notions of social belonging, personal identity, and aspirational lifestyles. And the company's advertisements were not merely functional, but narrative-driven, crafting stories around family gatherings, social events, workplace refreshment, and patriotic celebrations in which Nuka-Cola served as the connective tissue, reinforcing the idea that the beverage was not only desirable for its flavor, but indispensable to the cultural rituals of everyday life. And the use of visual motifs, such as the vibrant red and white logo, gleaming glass bottles, and dynamic depictions of consumers enjoying the product, created immediate brand recognition, embedding Nuka-Cola into the aesthetic consciousness of the population, and ensuring that the brand's presence was as much psychological as it was physical. And beyond conventional advertising, Nuka-Cola's influence extended into pop culture, with sponsorships of radio dramas, television programs, and public events, creating a symbiotic relationship between entertainment and commercial promotion, a strategy that both amplified the brand's visibility and reinforced its narrative association with happiness, excitement, and modern American values, and this integration into popular media was reinforced by the company's embrace of celebrity endorsements, tie-ins with sports, and themed promotions that invited consumers to engage with the brand, not just passively, but actively, participating in contests, fan clubs, and product-centered social gatherings, fostering a sense of community and shared cultural experience, which in turn heightened consumer loyalty and expanded the reach of Nuka-Cola's influence across demographic and geographic lines. And the impact of this strategy was profound, as Nuka-Cola became a touchstone of national identity, a product through which Americans expressed personal taste, social aspiration, and connection to a broader cultural narrative, while also shaping perceptions of modernity, technology, and progress, reflecting the optimistic ethos of the pre-war era and the consumer confidence of a society at the height of industrial and technological advancement. And in parallel, the company's advertising campaigns employed sophisticated psychological insights, utilizing color theory, auditory cues, and narrative structure to influence perception, elicit emotional responses, and create lasting impressions, ensuring that the brand remained memorable, desirable, and socially relevant, while reinforcing the perception that Nuka-Cola was more than a beverage, but a marker of refinement, enjoyment, and cultural participation. And the campaigns extended beyond traditional media, infiltrating public spaces through billboards, posters, transit advertising, and product placement in entertainment venues, reinforcing the omnipresence of the brand and cultivating a sense of inevitability, as if consuming Nuka-Cola were both natural and aspirational, a socially endorsed behavior that signaled alignment with contemporary trends, values, and tastes. And the company's pioneering use of experiential marketing further enhanced this cultural influence, with the creation of branded soda fountains, public demonstrations, and sampling events providing tactile, multi-sensory engagement that reinforced brand loyalty, stimulated word-of-mouth promotion, and offered consumers an immersive interaction with the product, transforming the act of drinking Nuka-Cola into a culturally resonant experience that extended beyond flavor to encompass memory, ritual, and social significance. And in addition to direct consumer engagement, Nuka-Cola also leveraged the aesthetic and technological optimism of the atomic age, incorporating themes of science, innovation, and progress into advertisements that highlighted not only the product's taste, but its association with futuristic energy, vitality, and adventure, culminating in variants such as Nuka-Cola Quantum, whose glowing blue appearance became both a scientific marvel and a marketing spectacle, demonstrating the company's mastery of integrating technological fascination with brand storytelling, creating a product that was simultaneously consumable, collectible, and emblematic of pre-war American ingenuity. And this fusion of science and marketing extended into merchandise, games, and promotional paraphernalia, including branded toys, tabletop games, and interactive exhibits that expanded Nuka-Cola's presence beyond the beverage itself into the broader realm of cultural participation, embedding the brand into childhood experience, leisure, and the social fabric, while cultivating a lifelong association between the product and positive memories, social interaction, and entertainment. And the pervasive influence of Nuka-Cola in pop culture also intersected with artistic expression, inspiring illustrators, animators, and graphic designers to create iconic representations of the brand, further reinforcing its visual identity and contributing to the creation of an aesthetic language that would later endure in post-apocalyptic scavenger culture, collector communities, and fan narratives, highlighting the enduring power of pre-war branding to shape perception, memory, and cultural meaning. And as the beverage became ubiquitous, it also served as a medium for aspirational storytelling, appearing in films, radio serials, and literature as a symbol of Americana, prosperity, and modern life, illustrating how a consumer product could achieve mythic status, becoming both a commodity and a cultural artifact. Its significance extending beyond the marketplace into the collective imagination, and the meticulous construction of this cultural presence underscores the strategic brilliance of Nuka-Cola's leadership, who recognized that brand success relied on emotional resonance, narrative coherence, and social integration, ensuring that the beverage was not only desired, but socially validated, emotionally meaningful, and culturally iconic. And in examining the full scope of Nuka-Cola's advertising and pop culture impact, it becomes evident that the company achieved something far beyond commercial dominance. It orchestrated a multi-sensory, multimedia, and narrative ecosystem that embedded the product into national identity, social ritual, and collective memory, creating a brand mythology that would survive the cataclysm of the Great War, enabling bottles, advertisements, jingles, and memorabilia to persist as artifacts of history, cultural touchstones, and objects of desire in the Wasteland. And this enduring influence highlights the extraordinary foresight, creativity, and cultural literacy of Nuka-Cola's pre-war strategists, who understood that the power of a soft drink could extend far beyond taste into the realms of emotion, identity, culture, and memory, transforming Nuka-Cola from a simple beverage into an emblem of American society, technological optimism, and cultural continuity, ensuring that even centuries later, in the devastated landscapes of the post-apocalyptic world, the name, image, and narrative of Nuka-Cola continue to resonate as symbols of a civilization defined by ingenuity, consumption, and the capacity to embed meaning into everyday objects. A legacy of advertising mastery, cultural saturation, and pop culture influence that remains central to the lore, aesthetic, and enduring mystique of the Fallout universe. The relationship between Nuka-Cola and Vault-Tec represents a uniquely intertwined aspect of pre-war, corporate, scientific, and social experimentation, reflecting a period in which corporate ambition, government oversight, and societal engineering coalesced in ways that left lasting marks on the Fallout universe. And this connection can be traced to the mid-21st century, when Vault-Tec, the preeminent company responsible for the design and construction of the nation's subterranean vaults, sought partnerships with private corporations capable of contributing both resources and technological innovation to their vast array of social and scientific experiments. And Nuka-Cola, as the preeminent beverage company of the time, proved to be a natural collaborator due to its extensive research capabilities, marketing reach, and production infrastructure, providing both a consumable commodity and a platform for controlled experimentation within the Vault system. And while the exact contractual and corporate arrangements remain partially obscured by historical gaps, evidence suggests that Nuka-Cola products were intentionally supplied to various vaults as part of social, nutritional, and behavioral studies, with the goal of observing consumer habits, psychological responses, and the influence of branded goods on morale, routine, and social cohesion under prolonged isolation. And this collaboration extended beyond simple supply chains, with Nuka-Cola scientists and chemists reportedly consulting with Vault-Tec engineers on formulation adjustments, shelf life extension, and radiation-resistant packaging, innovations that not only served the needs of the Vault experiments, but also contributed to the company's broader technological and scientific knowledge base, enabling the development of variants such as Nuka-Cola Quantum, whose luminescent properties were as much a product of controlled experimentation as they were a marketing tool, illustrating the blurred line between scientific research and consumer product development. And within the vaults themselves, the presence of Nuka-Cola served multiple functions, including nutritional supplementation, morale enhancement, and the establishment of social hierarchies and consumption rituals that could be observed and recorded, providing Vault-Tec with a microcosm in which to study human behavior under constrained and artificial conditions, while simultaneously offering residents a familiar pre-war cultural artifact to maintain psychological stability, a subtle reminder of the world above, and a tether to a society that had largely vanished by the time the Great War arrived. And in this sense, Nuka-Cola became more than a beverage. It was a tool, a variable, and a symbol, allowing Vault-Tec to manipulate, measure, and interpret the responses of Vault dwellers in ways that extended far beyond ordinary nutritional or recreational considerations, contributing to a sophisticated system of social engineering that characterized the Vault experiments, each of which was designed to isolate, test, and influence human behavior under highly controlled parameters, with Nuka-Cola playing a consistent and observable role in these experimental frameworks, whether by controlling access, limiting flavor variants, or introducing novel products at key intervals, thereby creating opportunities to observe consumer response, adaptation, and social dynamics. And in several vaults, records indicate that Nuka-Cola bottles and paraphernalia were integrated into reward systems, competitive games, or experimental stimuli, demonstrating an understanding by both corporations of the intersection between human desire, reward mechanisms, and behavioral conditioning, as residents internalized brand identity, developed preferences, and reacted predictably, or, at times, unpredictably, to changes in availability, formulation, or presentation, providing Vault-Tec with rich datasets for long-term sociological and psychological analysis. And these experiments also had the unintended effect of embedding Nuka-Cola even more deeply into the cultural memory of survivors, as residents who emerged decades later would retain not only a taste for the beverage, but a symbolic attachment, associating it with comfort, stability, and the lingering presence of pre-war social norms, a phenomenon that underscores the dual impact of the Vault-Tec connection, scientific utility for the corporation, and long-term cultural entrenchment for the brand, which extended far beyond the immediate pre-war environment into the wasteland economy, collector culture, and post-apocalyptic mythology. And this duality is evident in the ways Nuka-Cola interacts with post-war narratives, as characters, scavengers, and factions frequently reference Vault-specific variants, rare bottlings, or experimental formulas, highlighting both the historical depth of the Vault-Tec collaboration and the continuing relevance of pre-war corporate experimentation in shaping post-apocalyptic consumer behavior. And moreover, the Nuka-Cola Vault-Tec relationship exemplifies broader themes within Fallout lore, including the fusion of commerce, science, and governance, and the ethical ambiguity of corporate involvement in human experimentation, illustrating how seemingly innocuous consumer products can be co-opted for surveillance, conditioning, and research under the guise of utility or leisure, a dynamic that resonates across multiple Vault narratives, whether in documented studies, anecdotal survivor accounts, or in-game environmental storytelling, and the presence of Nuka-Cola within these vaults was also emblematic of pre-war consumerism and corporate omnipresence, with the brand functioning as both a familiar cultural artifact and a controlled variable within a meticulously engineered social ecosystem, reflecting the dual priorities of Vault-Tec to study human behavior scientifically, and Nuka-Cola to maintain brand loyalty, visibility, and perceived normalcy even in the most extreme conditions. And this integration extended to branding, packaging, and variant availability, as Vault-specific labels, promotional designs, and experimental flavorings were sometimes developed exclusively for individual vaults, creating microcosmic collector cultures and unique consumption experiences, further cementing the narrative that Nuka-Cola was both a consumable product and a cultural constant, able to persist, adapt, and remain desirable across radically altered social and environmental landscapes. And the legacy of this collaboration persists throughout the Fallout universe, with rare bottles, experimental recipes, and Vault-specific variants becoming prized artifacts among Wastelanders, traders, and collectors, each representing a tangible link to the pre-war past, a vestige of corporate ambition, and a material witness to the extensive social engineering of Vault-Tec, demonstrating how a beverage designed for enjoyment and mass appeal could simultaneously serve as a tool for behavioral observation, scientific experimentation, and long-term cultural embedding. And by examining this connection, one can trace the intricate ways in which Nuka-Cola influenced human experience, both within controlled Vault environments and across society at large, reinforcing its status as not merely a consumable product, but a multifaceted cultural and scientific instrument whose impact would reverberate for generations, illustrating the depth of pre-war corporate strategy, the sophistication of Vault-Tec's social experimentation, and the enduring capacity of a single consumer brand to shape, reflect, and preserve societal norms, memory, and identity. And ultimately, the Nuka-Cola Vault-Tec connection epitomizes the intersection of commerce, science, and culture, a uniquely Fallout phenomenon in which a soda transcends its ordinary function to become a tool of observation, a vector of continuity, and a symbol of pre-war ingenuity, experimentation, and the enduring human drive to craft meaning, structure, and familiarity, ensuring that even after the Great War, the influence of Nuka-Cola within Vaults would echo across centuries through Wasteland stories, collector lore, and the persistent presence of the brand as an artifact, icon, and cultural anchor within the fractured, post-apocalyptic world. The scientific foundation of Nuka-Cola represents a remarkable fusion of chemistry, food science, and pre-war technological ambition, reflecting the company's enduring commitment to innovation, consumer satisfaction, and brand mystique. And at the heart of this scientific endeavor was the careful manipulation of flavor, chemistry, carbonation, chemical stability, and eventually isotopic enhancement, all of which contributed to a beverage whose appeal extended beyond simple refreshment to include novelty, functionality, and, in certain variants, dramatic visual and energetic effects. And the origins of this scientific precision can be traced back to the earliest laboratories of Earl Cole, where teams of chemists, flavorists, and material scientists collaborated to perfect the balance of sweetness, acidity, effervescence, and mouthfeel, employing rigorous experimentation, iterative tasting, and proprietary formulations that remained closely guarded corporate secrets, ensuring that each batch of Nuka-Cola delivered a consistent sensory experience while also allowing for the creative exploration of novel flavors, additives, and chemical enhancements, and these efforts were informed not only by taste considerations, but by emerging research into human physiology, consumer psychology, and sensory perception, as Cole and his successors recognized that the experience of drinking a soft drink was determined as much by aroma, effervescence, color, and mouthfeel as by sweetness or carbonation, a realization that would influence not only product development, but advertising, packaging, and cultural resonance. And as the brand expanded, scientific experimentation extended into advanced chemical modifications, including isotopic engineering and radioluminescence, the latter becoming a hallmark of Nuka-Cola Quantum, whose blue glow was achieved through the incorporation of stable, pre-war isotopes that interacted safely within the drink to produce a sustained luminescent effect, simultaneously demonstrating scientific innovation and marketing genius, as the glowing beverage captivated consumers, emphasized the atomic age aesthetic, and reinforced the perception of Nuka-Cola as a product at the intersection of taste, technology, and modernity. And in addition to visual and flavor science, the company devoted extensive research to shelf life stability, ensuring that carbonation, flavor integrity, and chemical composition remained intact across distribution, storage, and environmental variation. A critical consideration given the pre-war logistical challenges of nationwide production and the desire to maintain uniformity in both taste and brand perception, and the engineering of the beverage's carbonation levels represents another key aspect of the scientific approach, with precise control of dissolved carbon dioxide, pressure, and temperature, ensuring that each bottle delivered the characteristic effervescence that defined the sensory identity of Nuka-Cola, enhancing both tactile and auditory pleasure in the act of consumption, while simultaneously supporting the visual appeal of the beverage and reinforcing the perception of freshness and quality. And in parallel, flavor chemistry involved the meticulous balancing of natural and synthetic sweeteners, flavor extracts, and aromatic compounds, combining both empirical tasting and analytical methods to calibrate the drink to broad consumer preferences, while maintaining a signature taste profile that was instantly recognizable, culturally embedded, and legally protected, forming the basis of the brand's competitive advantage. And alongside traditional flavor and carbonation science, Nuka-Cola researchers also investigated functional additives, including vitamins, mild stimulants, and ingredients designed to enhance energy, alertness, or well-being, positioning certain products as lifestyle beverages capable of influencing not only mood, but physical and cognitive performance, a strategy that reflected broader pre-war trends in functional consumer goods, health-conscious marketing, and the integration of science into everyday life. And these functional formulations were carefully tested for safety, efficacy, and palatability, ensuring that they could be distributed at scale without compromising taste, consumer confidence, or regulatory compliance, highlighting the company's sophisticated approach to risk management and applied science. And the luminescent properties of Nuka-Cola Quantum also exemplify the company's ability to translate complex scientific principles into tangible consumer experiences, as the isotopic and chemical engineering required to produce the safe, glowing effect represented a rare convergence of nuclear science, chemical stability, and marketing insight, allowing consumers to engage with the product on both sensory and aesthetic levels, and these experiments laid the groundwork for post-war fascination, collection, and speculation, as the precise mechanisms and effects of quantum's luminescence remained a source of wonder, desire, and legend, reinforcing the interplay between science, spectacle, and cultural resonance, and beyond flavor, carbonation, and visual effects. Nuka-Cola's science extended into packaging materials, bottling technologies, and distribution engineering, with specialized glass, coatings, and sealing methods designed to preserve chemical integrity, prevent contamination, and withstand the pressures of long-distance transportation, while also facilitating mass production at an industrial scale, demonstrating a holistic approach in which chemistry, engineering, and production science converged to ensure reliability, consumer satisfaction, and brand consistency, and the integration of safety protocols, quality control, and analytical testing reflects the company's commitment to rigorous scientific methodology, embedding practices such as batch testing, organoleptic evaluation, and chemical analysis into standard operational procedures. A foresight that would contribute to Nuka-Cola's ability to maintain its reputation for quality even under post-war conditions, as bottles discovered decades later frequently retained carbonation, flavor integrity, and structural integrity, a testament to the pre-war scientific rigor, chemical foresight, and engineering excellence. And in addition to these technical aspects, Nuka-Cola's science encompassed early explorations of social and behavioral effects, recognizing that the experience of consumption could influence mood, social cohesion, and ritual, and that product design, flavor combinations, and carbonation levels could be strategically leveraged to maximize both pleasure and brand loyalty, an understanding that informed marketing campaigns, variant development, and distribution strategies, illustrating how scientific insight and consumer psychology were deeply intertwined. And the cumulative effect of these scientific endeavors is evident in the enduring legacy of Nuka-Cola as pre-war experimentation in chemistry, flavor, isotopes, carbonation, functional additives, and packaging created products capable of surviving the apocalypse, inspiring legend, and continuing to affect the behavior, preferences, and culture of wastelanders, traders, and collectors, demonstrating that science, when combined with strategic branding and cultural awareness, can produce artifacts of enduring, practical, aesthetic, and symbolic value. And in examining the science of Nuka-Cola, one observes a company that approached soft drink production not merely as culinary art or consumer convenience, but as a multidimensional scientific enterprise, integrating chemistry, physics, materials, science, psychology, and industrial engineering into a cohesive methodology designed to create products that satisfied taste, embodied cultural aspiration, demonstrated technological sophistication, and generated emotional resonance. And this approach ensured that Nuka-Cola would not only dominate pre-war markets but also leave a durable legacy in the post-apocalyptic world, where the scientific brilliance embedded in every bottle continues to influence collection, use, trade, and mythology, underscoring the profound role of applied science in shaping culture, memory, and human experience. And ultimately, the science of Nuka-Cola stands as a testament to the company's foresight, ingenuity, and ability to fuse practical innovation with cultural and emotional resonance, crafting a beverage that remains, centuries later, an emblem of pre-war technological achievement, consumer engagement, and the enduring interplay between chemistry, culture and imagination in the Fallout universe. The catastrophic events of the Great War in 2077 tested the resilience of every aspect of pre-war society, from government institutions and infrastructure to corporations and consumer culture, and among the few products to survive both physically and culturally, Nuka-Cola stands as a singular example of a beverage that endured the nuclear holocaust, a testament to its pre-war engineering, scientific formulation, and widespread integration into daily life. And, as bombs fell, cities burned, and civilization fractured, the company's extensive distribution networks, robust bottling technologies, and chemically stable formulations allowed many Nuka-Cola products to remain intact, sometimes for decades, despite extreme environmental conditions, radiation exposure, and societal collapse. And while the Great War obliterated the national economy, severed supply chains, and transformed urban landscapes into irradiated wastelands, Nuka-Cola bottles, caps, and paraphernalia persisted, buried in ruins, stored in underground vaults, or otherwise shielded from immediate destruction, preserving both their physical integrity and their cultural symbolism, a unique survival narrative in which a commercial product outlasted entire cities and institutions, and the survival of Nuka-Cola can be attributed in part to the company's advanced bottling techniques, which employed reinforced glass, airtight seals, and chemically inert coatings to prevent degradation, as well as the careful selection of flavoring agents, sweeteners, and carbonation processes that resisted spoilage, microbial contamination, and chemical breakdown over time, demonstrating a pre-war foresight that inadvertently created a post-apocalyptic artifact capable of enduring the extreme conditions of the wasteland. And, in addition to material durability, the company's branding and widespread integration into social and cultural life ensured that Nuka-Cola persisted as a concept and object of desire even after societal collapse, as survivors, scavengers, and vault dwellers retained knowledge of the beverage, its flavors, and its symbolic associations with comfort, normalcy, and pre-war prosperity, thereby embedding it within oral history, folklore, and practical post-war culture. And in this sense, Nuka-Cola served not merely as a consumable product, but as a cultural anchor, a tangible connection to a vanished civilization, providing both psychological comfort and social continuity in an otherwise chaotic environment. And the strategic foresight of the company is further evidenced by the pre-war production of large-scale bottling plants, distribution warehouses, and underground storage facilities, some of which were naturally or intentionally insulated from immediate nuclear devastation, allowing for post-war retrieval and consumption, and in certain instances, vault dwellers were supplied with pre-war Nuka-Cola stocks as part of controlled nutritional and behavioral programs, ensuring that the brand maintained both utility and cultural resonance even in the isolated post-apocalyptic microcosms engineered by Vault-Tec. And as society fragmented, Nuka-Cola bottles became valuable commodities, functioning as currency, bartering tools, and status symbols, with collectors, traders, and wastelanders seeking rare flavors, intact packaging, and pre-war memorabilia, demonstrating that the brand's survival was not only physical, but economic and symbolic, influencing post-war social hierarchies, trade practices, and cultural memory. And the durability of certain variants, particularly Nuka-Cola Quantum, whose luminescence persisted due to isotopic engineering, further cemented the drink's legendary status, transforming it into an object of fascination, superstition, and desire. and the rarity of such surviving bottles amplified their perceived value, reinforcing the role of Nuka-Cola as both a practical resource and a cultural artifact, capable of bridging the pre-war and post-war worlds. And the company's influence also extended into the Wasteland through the remnants of Nuka-World amusement parks, advertising, and promotional material, which served as physical and symbolic reminders of pre-war consumer culture, technological optimism, and societal organization, providing context, nostalgia, and narrative framing for the rediscovery of Nuka-Cola by scavengers and survivors. And in the aftermath of the Great War, Nuka-Cola's survival was further enhanced by human ingenuity and adaptation, as individuals and groups scavenged, salvaged, and repurposed bottles, caps, and syrup concentrates, often rediscovering long-forgotten production methods, formulating makeshift versions of the beverage, or trading intact bottles as valuable commodities within emerging post-war economies, demonstrating a remarkable continuity in which the product's inherent durability intersected with human resourcefulness to ensure its persistence across both physical and social landscapes, and the continued presence of Nuka-Cola also contributed to the preservation of pre-war knowledge, as surviving bottles, labels, and containers contained chemical, aesthetic, and linguistic cues that allowed Wastelanders to infer flavor profiles, chemical composition, and cultural significance, thereby linking post-war communities to a pre-war past that was otherwise largely obliterated. And this interplay between physical survival, human adaptation, and cultural memory highlights the extraordinary foresight embedded in Nuka-Cola's design and marketing. For even without conscious intention, the company's rigorous approach to production, branding, and scientific innovation created artifacts capable of enduring the most extreme societal and environmental disruption, ensuring that Nuka-Cola would remain both a consumable good and a symbol of human continuity, nostalgia, and ingenuity. And the beverage's survival also underscores the broader fallout theme of pre-war culture persisting amidst post-apocalyptic devastation, with Nuka-Cola functioning as a tangible link between two eras, an emblem of normalcy, optimism, and technological mastery that continued to influence behavior, social organization, and economic activity long after the collapse of civilization. And the widespread recognition of Nuka-Cola, its flavors, variants, and associated paraphernalia further reinforced its mythic status, as even generations removed from pre-war society understood its significance, pursued its discovery, and integrated it into both functional and symbolic aspects of daily life, creating a feedback loop in which survival, desirability, and cultural identity coalesced around a single consumer product. And the enduring legacy of Nuka-Cola's survival through the Great War exemplifies the interplay between material science, corporate foresight, cultural embedding, and human adaptation, revealing how a product meticulously designed for consistency, appeal, and technological advancement could transcend catastrophic societal collapse to become an object of desire, a medium of memory, and a cornerstone of post-apocalyptic culture. And in this light, Nuka-Cola's persistence is not merely a historical curiosity, but a profound testament to the capacity of human ingenuity, pre-war industrial mastery, and cultural resonance to produce artifacts that endure both physically and symbolically, connecting past and present, civilization and survival, consumerism and identity, and ensuring that even in a world shattered by nuclear annihilation, the taste, imagery, and mythos of Nuka-Cola would continue to shape social behavior, trade, memory, and imagination, embedding itself indelibly into the fabric of the wasteland and the collective consciousness of all who encounter it. In the aftermath of the Great War, as civilization crumbled and the surface of the United States became a radioactive wasteland, Nuka-Cola transitioned from a ubiquitous pre-war consumer product into a scarce and highly coveted relic, a commodity whose presence in the irradiated landscape carried both practical and symbolic significance, and the persistence of Nuka-Cola in the wasteland exemplifies the interplay between pre-war industrial durability, human ingenuity, and the emergent post-apocalyptic economy, as scavengers, traders, and communities adapted to the collapse of centralized distribution by locating, salvaging, and repurposing bottles, syrup concentrates, and remnants of pre-war bottling plants, often relying on detailed knowledge of Nuka-Cola production, packaging, and preservation methods to maximize both survival, utility, and trade value. And in many ways, Nuka-Cola's durability and cultural imprint made it uniquely suited to the new societal conditions, as its chemical stability allowed it to survive years in irradiated ruins, underground storage, and makeshift caches, while its iconic branding and historical prestige rendered it a status symbol, a marker of pre-war sophistication, and a source of psychological comfort in a world defined by scarcity, danger, and the collapse of social norms. And the drink's adaptability also became evident, as wasteland inhabitants discovered that certain variants offered functional advantages beyond refreshment, whether as a source of hydration, energy, or stimulants, particularly in the case of Nuka-Cola Quantum, whose persistent luminescence served both as a practical light source and a symbol of pre-war scientific achievement, enhancing morale, utility, and narrative mystique simultaneously. And this functional and symbolic value contributed to the formation of microeconomies in which Nuka-Cola became a medium of exchange, a bargaining tool, and a unit of social capital, as individuals and factions traded rare bottles, caps, and intact syrup containers for goods, services, protection, or information, integrating the beverage into the emergent post-war social and economic order. And the presence of Nuka-Cola in the wasteland also influenced cultural practices and rituals, as scavengers developed storytelling traditions, ceremonial uses, and collectible hierarchies based on flavor, rarity, or intactness, effectively turning a pre-war soft drink into a medium through which human communities could navigate scarcity, establish identity, and maintain continuity with a lost civilization. And this cultural embedding was reinforced by the beverage's visual distinctiveness, particularly in glowing variants, whose luminescent properties became focal points for communal gatherings, trade negotiations, and celebratory events, underscoring the ways in which pre-war scientific ingenuity could shape post-apocalyptic social behavior, memory, and aspiration. And as Nuka-Cola became both consumable resource and cultural artifact, its scarcity intensified social dynamics, generating conflict, competition, and collaboration among wasteland groups, as factions sought to control caches, monopolize distribution, or exploit the drink's symbolic and practical value, further reinforcing the notion that Nuka-Cola functioned as both sustenance and status, commodity and cultural emblem, while also illustrating the adaptive strategies that emerged in response to environmental, social, and economic collapse. And this transformation of Nuka-Cola's role highlights a unique aspect of post-war survival culture, in which objects designed for mass consumption in a technologically advanced society gained entirely new layers of meaning, utility, and narrative significance, effectively bridging the pre-war and post-war eras through both material presence and symbolic resonance, and the adaptability of Nuka-Cola extended to its physical properties as survivors learned to repurpose bottles as storage containers, improvised tools, or signaling devices, while syrup concentrates and rare variants were leveraged in crafting beverages that balanced taste, nutrition, and functional effects, demonstrating a sophisticated post-apocalyptic understanding of chemistry, resource management, and cultural value, and in some cases, communities even attempted small-scale replication of Nuka-Cola using salvaged ingredients and improvised carbonating methods, creating localized production systems that mirrored pre-war bottling techniques on a miniature scale, a practice that further reinforced the beverage's integration into social, economic, and cultural structures, while simultaneously highlighting the ingenuity and resilience of human societies in reconstructing material culture amidst extreme scarcity. And Nuka-Cola's prominence in Wasteland culture also extended into narrative and myth, as survivors, traders, and adventurers recounted stories of legendary bottles, lost recipes, and heroic scavenging feats, elevating certain variants to almost religious status and reinforcing the symbolic power of the drink as a connection to pre-war civilization, technological achievement, and the shared memory of a world largely obliterated by nuclear devastation. And this mythologization of Nuka-Cola contributed to the establishment of social norms, collection practices, and trade hierarchies, as the rarity, condition, and provenance of bottles dictated value, prestige, and influence within communities, creating a tangible intersection between material culture, economy, and identity, and the beverage's integration into factional and settlement dynamics was further reinforced by its practical applications, as Nuka-Cola served as a source of hydration, mild stimulation, and even limited nutritional support, making it an indispensable resource in hazardous wasteland environments, while simultaneously maintaining its symbolic association with pre-war prosperity, consumer culture, and technological mastery, and the continued allure of rare flavors and glowing variants, such as Nuka-Cola Quantum, catalyzed expeditions, exploration, and competitive endeavors, reflecting both practical and psychological dimensions of survival, in which objects of desire drove human behavior, social organization, and cultural continuity, and these dynamics highlight the multifaceted influence of Nuka-Cola in the wasteland, functioning as consumable resource, trade commodity, collectible artifact, and cultural touchstone, while simultaneously embodying the intersection of pre-war science, marketing, and design with post-war adaptation, scarcity, and social evolution. And the drink's enduring presence underscores the broader narrative of human resilience and creativity, as societies in the wasteland repurpose, reinterpret, and revalue pre-war artifacts to construct new systems of meaning, economy, and identity, demonstrating that a product conceived for enjoyment, mass consumption, and cultural saturation could survive the collapse of civilization, evolve in significance, and remain central to the lived experience of generations of survivors. And the story of Nuka-Cola in the wasteland thus exemplifies the intersection of technological durability, human ingenuity, and cultural persistence, revealing how a pre-war consumer product can transform into an enduring symbol of continuity, aspiration, and social cohesion. linking the fragments of a destroyed world with the emergent narratives, economies, and identities of post-apocalyptic society, and ultimately, the pervasive influence of Nuka-Cola across the Wasteland underscores the extraordinary capacity of material culture to survive disaster, shape behavior, and mediate meaning, ensuring that even centuries after the Great War, the drink remains both a functional resource and a powerful emblem of pre-war civilization, scientific innovation, and the human drive to create, preserve, and adapt cultural artifacts in the face of extreme adversity, cementing its status as a defining element of the Fallout universe and a central pillar of post-apocalyptic survival, trade, and social memory. The practice of collecting Nuka-Cola in both the pre-war and post-apocalyptic eras reflects a fascinating intersection of consumer behavior, cultural nostalgia, social identity, and economic value, illustrating how a product originally designed for widespread enjoyment evolved into an artifact of desire, status, and historical significance. And this phenomenon began in the pre-war period, when limited editions, special flavors, promotional bottles, and thematic packaging were deliberately designed to encourage repeat purchases, brand loyalty, and community engagement, as the company leveraged principles of scarcity, collectability, and novelty to create a product ecosystem in which the act of acquiring, displaying, and exchanging Nuka-Cola bottles became an experience in itself, and advertisements, fan clubs, and promotional contests further reinforced this culture of collection, as consumers were invited to seek out rare flavors, exclusive designs, and commemorative items, thereby participating in a social ritual that combined consumption with identity formation, community interaction, and aesthetic appreciation. And the pre-war collection culture laid the groundwork for a far more significant post-apocalyptic practice, as the destruction of centralized society, collapse of production, and scarcity of intact bottles transformed Nuka-Cola from a common commodity into a highly prized artifact. And in the Wasteland, survivors, traders, and scavengers developed intricate hierarchies of value based on flavor, condition, rarity, provenance, and even the historical significance of specific bottles, as the scarcity of pre-war items intensified their desirability, creating a parallel economy in which Nuka-Cola functioned as currency, collectible, and status symbol simultaneously, and the diversity of flavors and variants, including Nuka-Cola Cherry, Nuka-Cola Quantum, Nuka-Cola Victory, and experimental vault-specific editions, created layers of collectability, as each variant carried distinct visual, functional, or symbolic characteristics that influenced its desirability, trade value, and social meaning. And the luminescence of Quantum, the distinctive hue of Victory, or the elegant design of limited edition commemorative bottles, made them not merely consumable goods, but objects of fascination, reverence, and legend, inspiring quests, exchanges, and storytelling practices that elevated collection into a cultural practice, a ritualized form of memory, prestige, and engagement. And collectors often developed meticulous methods for evaluating, preserving, and displaying bottles, understanding that exposure to radiation, sunlight, moisture, and physical damage could compromise both functional and aesthetic value, leading to the development of caches, vault-like storage techniques, and improvised display systems that allowed for both preservation and social presentation, while reinforcing the notion that Nuka-Cola was not only a beverage, but an artifact capable of connecting individuals with history, community, and identity. And the collection of Nuka-Cola also intersected with factional dynamics in the Wasteland, as organized groups, mercenary bands, and settlement communities often competed for control over caches, rare bottles, or remnants of pre-war production facilities, with possession of the most coveted items conferring prestige, authority, or leverage within social hierarchies, illustrating the ways in which material culture, scarcity, and symbolic value converged to shape social organization, economic exchange, and even conflict in post-apocalyptic environments. And this competitive and collaborative engagement fostered the development of expertise, lore, and storytelling. As collectors documented provenance, historical context, and unique characteristics of bottles, creating oral histories, ledgers, and visual records that perpetuated knowledge and myth around Nuka-Cola, further embedding the brand into cultural memory and extending its significance beyond mere consumption into realms of scholarship, curation, and legend. And in some cases, the pursuit of rare bottles inspired exploration, adventure, and risk-taking as Wastelanders navigated irradiated ruins, rival territories, and hazardous landscapes in search of intact products, demonstrating how the desire for Nuka-Cola could motivate behavior, organize communities, and shape patterns of movement, trade, and social interaction, while simultaneously reinforcing the product's status as a symbol of pre-war civilization, technological sophistication, and human ingenuity. And the narrative surrounding collection was further enriched by the inclusion of vault-specific, promotional, and experimental variants whose rarity and contextual significance amplified both material and symbolic value, with bottles from certain vaults or limited pre-war events becoming objects of almost mythical status, inspiring stories, legends, and quests that perpetuated the cultural significance of Nuka-Cola across generations. And the physical characteristics of the bottles themselves, the distinctive red and white labeling, unique cap designs, luminescent properties, and specialized glasswork, enhanced collectability as visual appeal, tactile qualities, and technological novelty reinforced the desirability of individual items, ensuring that the act of collecting was both sensory and symbolic, creating a multi-dimensional experience in which the appreciation of aesthetics, history, and utility converged. And in the context of Wasteland trade, Nuka-Cola collectors developed complex systems of valuation, negotiation, and authentication, recognizing that provenance, intactness, flavor variant, and historical context could dramatically influence market dynamics, establishing a robust sub-economy in which the beverage functioned simultaneously as consumable, collectible, currency, and status symbol. And this interplay between scarcity, utility, and cultural meaning highlights the dual nature of Nuka-Cola collection, in which practical considerations, hydration, energy, or chemical effects intersect with symbolic considerations, nostalgia, prestige, and historical resonance, creating a layered social and material ecosystem in which the product continues to shape human interaction, memory, and desire, and, moreover, the cultural practice of collecting reinforces identity, both personal and communal, as individuals develop expertise, networks, and reputational capital through the acquisition, curation, and trade of Nuka-Cola, establishing themselves within social hierarchies, community norms, and shared narratives, while also maintaining tangible connections to a pre-war past that might otherwise be lost. And, The educational and mnemonic dimensions of collection further underscore its significance, as knowledge of variants, production dates, vault-specific editions, and promotional campaigns becomes a means of preserving pre-war cultural history, technological achievement, and brand evolution, effectively transforming Nuka-Cola into an artifact of both consumable and archival value, with each bottle functioning as a repository of taste, design, science, and social meaning. And the enduring popularity of Nuka-Cola Collection demonstrates the interplay of human desire, memory, and cultural continuity, as the act of acquiring, preserving, and displaying bottles allows survivors to assert agency, construct narratives, and maintain identity within the destabilized social and environmental landscape of the Wasteland, while simultaneously participating in a shared cultural practice that links past and present, individual and community, consumption and symbolism, and ultimately, the culture of Nuka-Cola collecting exemplifies the extraordinary ways in which a consumer product, meticulously engineered for taste, aesthetics, and marketing, can transcend its original purpose to become a durable, meaningful artifact that shapes social structures, economic systems, cultural memory, and human behavior for generations, illustrating that in both pre-war and post-apocalyptic contexts, Nuka-Cola collection is far more than hobby or indulgence. It is a lens through which one can observe the convergence of science, marketing, psychology, aesthetics, and survival, a practice that continues to define communities, economies, and identities, cementing the beverage's place as a central cultural, material, and symbolic element in the Fallout universe, and ensuring that even in a world fragmented by nuclear devastation, the bottles, flavors, and variants of Nuka-Cola remain as enduring emblems of ingenuity, continuity, and human desire, a testament to the product's resilience, the company's foresight, and the capacity of material culture to survive, adapt, and influence generations long after the collapse of civilization itself. The story of Nuka-World amusement parks represents one of the most ambitious and culturally significant expansions of the Nuka-Cola brand, reflecting not only the company's marketing genius, but also its capacity to integrate entertainment, consumer culture, and social engineering into a single, immersive experience, and the genesis of these parks can be traced to the early 2070s, when Nuka-Cola executives, inspired by the successes of theme parks such as Disneyland and Six Flags, recognized an opportunity to extend the brand beyond beverage consumption into the realm of leisure, spectacle, and direct experiential engagement, creating physical spaces where consumers could inhabit the world of Nuka-Cola, encounter larger-than-life representations of their favorite beverages, interact with themed rides and attractions, and participate in a curated vision of pre-war Americana, science, and atomic age optimism. And the construction of the first Nuka-World park involved a coordinated effort between architects, engineers, marketing specialists, and brand designers, all of whom worked to create environments that were visually striking, technologically innovative, and thematically coherent, incorporating iconic branding elements such as the red and white Nuka-Cola logo, stylized bottle shapes, and mascot imagery, while also designing roller coasters, dark rides, live performances, and interactive experiences that reinforced brand identity, consumer loyalty, and emotional attachment. And each park was meticulously planned, with multiple themed zones, including the central Nuka-Cola Pavilion, the giddy-up zone with equestrian-inspired attractions, the Kiddie Kingdom designed for families and young children, and the Safari Adventure, incorporating animatronic wildlife and immersive storytelling, all interconnected by carefully designed walkways, signage, and merchandising points that ensured the visitor experience was both entertaining and commercially productive. And park's mascots, most notably Nuka-Girl and the anthropomorphized Nuka-Cola bottle character, served as focal points for photo opportunities, live shows, and interactive marketing campaigns, creating iconic imagery that was replicated across advertising, product packaging, and collectible memorabilia, embedding the park's aesthetic deeply into the cultural consciousness. And pre-war fan culture quickly emerged around these amusement parks, as families, school groups, and Nuka-Cola enthusiasts traveled across the country to experience the attractions, purchase exclusive merchandise, and participate in special events, including seasonal celebrations, product launches, and celebrity appearances, fostering a sense of community, shared experience, and brand devotion that reinforced Nuka-Cola's position not only as a beverage, but as a lifestyle and cultural institution. And the parks also served as a platform for experimental marketing strategies, as limited edition Nuka-Cola variants, branded apparel, and collectible bottles were distributed exclusively within park premises, creating incentives for visitation, repeat attendance, and long-term engagement, while simultaneously promoting the broader Nuka-Cola product ecosystem. And the technological sophistication of the parks was notable, as animatronics, interactive exhibits, and ride mechanisms incorporated pre-war advancements in hydraulics, pneumatics, and electronics, offering visitors both thrilling entertainment and a glimpse into the era's vision of scientific progress and modernity, while the architectural and design elements, including towering bottle-shaped observation towers, neon signage, and immersive themed environments, created a visually striking landscape that reinforced brand identity and encouraged photographic documentation, storytelling, and social engagement. And despite the park's popularity, their construction and operation were not without challenges, as the logistical demands of maintaining large-scale attractions, ensuring visitor safety, and coordinating staffing, maintenance, and supply chains tested the company's organizational capacity, and reports from the era indicate that these challenges were compounded by the looming geopolitical tensions, economic volatility, and the eventual breakdown of national infrastructure that would culminate in the Great War. And the rise of Nuka-World amusement parks thus represents both a triumph of corporate imagination and a prelude to inevitable decline, as these sprawling entertainment complexes became impossible to maintain, vulnerable to environmental hazards, and ultimately abandoned when the bombs fell in 2077. Leaving behind skeletal remains of rides, mascots, and architecture that would persist as haunting monuments to pre-war consumer culture, optimism, and technological ambition. And in the decades following the Great War, the ruins of Nuka-World became sites of scavenging, exploration, and post-apocalyptic myth-making, as survivors, traders, and adventurers navigated the decaying rides, dilapidated attractions, and derelict pavilions in search of consumable goods, collectible memorabilia, and narrative connection to a world that no longer existed. And the mascot figures, once designed to entertain and delight visitors, took on new roles as iconic symbols of both nostalgia and menace, with animatronic Nuka-Cola figures sometimes preserved, partially functioning, or modified by Wastelanders. further enhancing the park's reputation as a site of both historical significance and contemporary interaction. And the architectural design, zoning, and theming of Nuka-World also influenced emergent post-war settlement patterns, as the layout of the parks provided both shelter and navigable structures for survivor communities, while the branding and memorabilia left behind contributed to local economies, trade networks, and scavenger hierarchies, demonstrating that the park's cultural and material legacy persisted far beyond their operational lifespan, and the pre-war fan culture around Nuka-World is particularly noteworthy for the way it reinforced brand mythology, loyalty, and identity, as families and enthusiasts created rituals of attendance, collection, and storytelling that would later be adapted in post-apocalyptic narratives, illustrating the deep psychological, social, and cultural imprint of the parks on both contemporary and future audiences, and the integration of rides, mascots, interactive zones, and limited edition products into a cohesive brand ecosystem reflects Nuka-Cola's mastery of immersive marketing, demonstrating how the company understood the interplay between experience, emotion, and consumer behavior, and by creating spaces where consumption, entertainment, and narrative overlapped, Nuka-World exemplified the concept of experiential branding long before it became common practice in corporate strategy, embedding the company's identity into memory, ritual, and social practice, and the eventual fall of Nuka-World underscores the fragility of pre-war cultural institutions in the face of global catastrophe, as the amusement parks, despite their scale, technological sophistication, and cultural resonance, could not withstand nuclear devastation, economic collapse, and societal breakdown, leaving behind ruins that would later serve as both practical resources and potent symbols for post-war communities. And these ruins, with their decayed rides, advertisements, mascots, and memorabilia, became sites of scavenger interest, narrative exploration, and cultural continuity, preserving the aesthetic, technological, and social legacy of Nuka-Cola, while simultaneously transforming the parks into objects of myth, adventure, and storytelling within the post-apocalyptic imagination, and the enduring fascination with Nuka-World in the Wasteland, as depicted in survivor accounts, in-game exploration, and collector lore, highlights the remarkable capacity of pre-war cultural artifacts to influence social identity, behavior, and memory, demonstrating that Nuka-World, though physically destroyed, continues to function as a nexus of cultural significance, nostalgia, and human ingenuity, bridging the pre-war era of optimism and consumerism with the post-apocalyptic landscapes of survival, adaptation, and storytelling. And ultimately, the rise and fall of Nuka-World amusement parks exemplifies the intersection of corporate ambition, technological innovation, social engineering, and cultural influence, illustrating how Nuka-Cola extended its reach from beverage consumption to immersive experience, creating spaces that were simultaneously entertaining, promotional, and socially transformative. And even after the apocalypse, the remnants of Nuka-World remain central to understanding the legacy of pre-war culture, the persistence of brand mythology, and the ways in which material artifacts, architecture, mascots, and fan culture continue to shape human interaction, narrative, and memory, ensuring that Nuka-World endures as a symbol of ambition, imagination, and the complex interplay between commerce, culture, and history within the Fallout universe. The history of Nuka-Cola cannot be fully understood without examining its corporate rivalries and spin-offs, which reveal the competitive landscape of pre-war soft drink production, the strategic maneuvering that defined the beverage industry, and the attempts by other corporations to replicate or challenge Nuka-Cola's dominance. And from the early 21st century through the mid-2070s, Nuka-Cola faced an array of competitors, ranging from national soda companies to regional beverage producers, each seeking to capture market share through flavor innovation, advertising, price competition, and distribution efficiency. Yet Nuka-Cola consistently maintained a leading position due to its combination of brand recognition, scientific innovation, marketing, sophistication, and the creation of immersive cultural experiences such as Nuka-World, which competitors struggle to emulate, and these rivalries often manifested in marketing battles, wherein companies attempted to differentiate their products through distinctive flavors, packaging, slogans, celebrity endorsements, and promotional campaigns designed to appeal to specific demographics. Yet Nuka-Cola frequently responded with counter-campaigns, limited edition variants, and strategic partnerships that reinforced consumer loyalty and underscored the superiority of its product, both in taste and cultural significance. And in addition to direct market competition, rival companies experimented with alternative beverages designed to challenge Nuka-Cola's hegemony, producing formulas that mimicked carbonation levels, flavor profiles, and sweetness, while also introducing novel elements such as functional additives, vitamin enhancement, or alternative packaging in an effort to carve out niche markets. Yet these products often failed to achieve the same cultural resonance as Nuka-Cola's combination of branding, marketing, and social integration created a multi-layered loyalty that went beyond flavor or utility to encompass identity, nostalgia, and aspirational association, and the rivalry extended to technological innovation, with competitors seeking to emulate Nuka-Cola's advances in bottling, carbonation control, flavor stability, and even the luminescent properties of Nuka-Cola Quantum. Yet the company's extensive research and development infrastructure, combined with careful protection of trade secrets and patents, allowed it to maintain a technological edge, demonstrating how science, marketing, and corporate strategy were deeply intertwined. And in certain instances, competitors attempted to launch spin-off beverages under similar branding, hoping to capitalize on Nuka-Cola's cultural presence while offering subtle variations in taste, color, or effect. But these products frequently failed to resonate because they lacked the holistic integration of marketing, cultural embedding, and experiential design that Nuka-Cola had mastered, illustrating the challenges inherent in replicating a brand whose influence extended far beyond the beverage itself into social ritual, aesthetic perception, and collective memory. And the marketing battles often escalated into creative campaigns designed to mock, parody, or overtly challenge Nuka-Cola, with rival advertisements contrasting flavors, demonstrating unique qualities, or portraying Nuka-Cola consumers as outdated or misguided. Yet these campaigns typically reinforced Nuka-Cola's dominance by drawing attention to its brand, encouraging direct comparison, and highlighting the uniqueness of the company's approach to consumer engagement. And the intensity of these rivalries contributed to a culture of innovation and adaptation, as Nuka-Cola continually sought to refine its formulations, expand its product line, and deepen cultural penetration in response to competitive pressures, ensuring that its beverages remained both scientifically advanced and socially desirable, while simultaneously limiting the ability of rivals to gain traction and spin-offs. And competitors also targeted the expanding experiential market, attempting to mimic Nuka-World style attractions, promotional events, and collectible merchandise in order to cultivate brand engagement. Yet Nuka-Cola's pre-existing integration of leisure, marketing, and narrative immersion created a formidable barrier to entry, ensuring that alternative entertainment-based marketing efforts rarely matched the cohesion, reach, or appeal of the company's comprehensive approach. And the rivalry also extended into technological experimentation, as competitors developed unique carbonation systems, bottle designs, and chemical enhancements to compete with Nuka-Cola Quantum or other specialized variants. But such efforts were constrained by limitations in scientific expertise, production infrastructure, and brand mythology, highlighting the advantage of Nuka-Cola's combination of technological mastery and cultural embedding, which made imitation difficult, costly, and often ineffective. And in many cases, corporate spin-offs resulted in limited regional success, niche markets, or short-lived popularity. But the enduring dominance of Nuka-Cola across multiple decades underscores the effectiveness of its integrated strategy, in which product design, marketing, social influence, and consumer loyalty were mutually reinforcing, creating barriers that extended far beyond flavor preference into identity, ritual, and cultural significance. And these rivalries also influenced internal corporate decisions, as Nuka-Cola invested in research, advertising, and product diversification to preempt competition, resulting in the creation of specialty variants, seasonal flavors, and collectible editions designed to capture consumer attention and discourage brand switching, while also reinforcing the perception that Nuka-Cola was innovative, desirable, and culturally indispensable. And the cumulative effect of these rivalries was a highly dynamic beverage landscape in which competition spurred both technological and creative advances, yet ultimately demonstrated the unparalleled position of Nuka-Cola, whose pre-war dominance was maintained not simply by taste or availability, but through a sophisticated understanding of consumer psychology, cultural integration, and experiential engagement. And in the post-war context, these rivalries and spin-offs continue to influence Wasteland economics, as pre-war competitors' remnants, recipes, and brands occasionally resurface, while collectors, scavengers, and traders prize intact Nuka-Cola products and historical documentation, further reinforcing the beverage's status as both a cultural touchstone and a durable economic asset. And by examining the corporate rivalries and spin-offs surrounding Nuka-Cola, one observes a comprehensive picture of how a single brand maintained market leadership through strategic innovation, defensive marketing, cultural embedding, technological superiority, and the cultivation of mythos, ensuring that even amidst intense competition and attempts at imitation, Nuka-Cola remained the defining beverage of both pre-war and post-apocalyptic America. And this history highlights the intricate interplay of commerce, science, marketing, and culture, illustrating how corporate strategy, competitive pressure, and brand mythology coalesced to produce a product whose influence persists centuries later in the Wasteland, collector culture, and Fallout canon, demonstrating that Nuka-Cola's supremacy was not incidental, but the result of deliberate, sustained, and multifaceted effort to dominate taste, culture, and imagination simultaneously. The relationship between Nuka-Cola and the Brotherhood of Steel represents a fascinating intersection of pre-war consumer culture, post-apocalyptic resource management, and the factions' enduring commitment to the preservation, study, and control of advanced technology. And while the Brotherhood is often associated primarily with weapons, power armor, and scientific artifacts. Its interest in Nuka-Cola underscores the organization's broader mandate to safeguard knowledge, materials, and technological achievements from the ravages of the Wasteland, and the faction's interaction with Nuka-Cola can be traced to both strategic and scholarly considerations, as the beverage represents a remarkably well-engineered pre-war product that combines chemical stability, packaging, innovation, and marketing sophistication, providing not only potential consumable utility, but also a tangible example of applied science, industrial logistics, and cultural influence, and records from Brotherhood expeditions, patrol logs, and recovered documentation indicate that members frequently located, catalogued, and preserved Nuka-Cola bottles, syrup concentrates, and related paraphernalia as part of their broader archival efforts, recognizing that the survival of such items offers insight into the methods, priorities, and technological capabilities of pre-war corporations, as well as the social and cultural dynamics of 21st century America, and in certain chapters, particularly those stationed in regions rich with Nuka-Cola distribution networks or abandoned bottling facilities, the Brotherhood developed specialized repositories to protect rare and intact bottles, ensuring that variants such as Nuka-Cola Quantum, Nuka-Cola Victory, and Vault-specific formulations were shielded from environmental degradation, scavengers, or hostile factions, highlighting the faction's methodical approach to resource preservation and technological stewardship, and these preservation efforts often involved meticulous cataloging, environmental control, and experimental analysis, as scribe and scientist units within the Brotherhood conducted chemical testing, isotopic analysis, and material studies to better understand the drink's composition, shelf life resilience, and potential applications, demonstrating a dual focus on scientific inquiry and practical resource management. And the Brotherhood's interest in Nuka-Cola also intersected with post-war survival considerations, as intact bottles provided a portable source of hydration, sugar, stimulants, and, in the case of specialized variants, minor energy or morale-boosting effects, allowing patrols, outposts, and expeditionary units to supplement rations and maintain operational efficiency, while simultaneously preserving culturally significant artifacts for research and archival purposes. And in several documented cases, Brotherhood foraging missions explicitly prioritized the recovery of pre-war Nuka-Cola stocks over other consumables, recognizing the beverage's dual utility as both a resource and a repository of knowledge, with commanders noting in logs that the discovery of a Vault-specific edition or quantum variant warranted careful handling, cataloging, and transport rather than immediate consumption to maximize both informational and symbolic value. And the faction's approach to Nuka-Cola reflects broader themes in its organizational philosophy, including the dual mandate of preservation and control, whereby artifacts are collected not solely for immediate use, but for long-term study, replication, or strategic leverage. And the symbolic power of Nuka-Cola also factored into the Brotherhood's cultural interpretation, as members recognized that pre-war consumer products, marketing, and leisure culture embodied insights into societal priorities, technological sophistication, and the interplay between industry and everyday life, with Nuka-Cola representing one of the clearest examples of how a consumer good could transcend function to become an enduring cultural artifact. And beyond preservation, the Brotherhood occasionally conducted controlled experiments using Nuka-Cola, studying chemical composition, carbonation stability, isotopic properties, and luminescent effects, particularly in the case of Nuka-Cola Quantum, to evaluate potential applications in energy generation, illumination, or scientific research. And while such studies were not typically intended for mass replication or commercial exploitation, they reflect the faction's commitment to understanding and potentially leveraging pre-war technology in a responsible and strategically advantageous manner, with a careful balance between experimentation, conservation, and security, and interactions between the Brotherhood and Nuka-Cola also included encounters with Wastelanders, scavenger groups, and rival factions, who often sought to acquire bottles, syrup, or related artifacts, resulting in negotiations, trade, or conflict that underscored the drink's economic, symbolic, and strategic value in post-war society, as well as the Brotherhood's role as arbiter, protector, and curator of pre-war knowledge, with the ability to dictate access, preserve integrity, and ensure controlled study. And the faction's approach was often informed by risk assessment, ethical consideration, and tactical planning, as uncontrolled consumption, mishandling, or proliferation of certain Nuka-Cola variants, especially those with luminescent or isotopic properties, could present safety hazards or disrupt post-war social equilibria, highlighting the complex responsibilities associated with stewardship of pre-war artifacts. And archival evidence indicates that Brotherhood engineers occasionally reverse-engineered Nuka-Cola formulations to better understand carbonation methods, flavor chemistry, and packaging technology, documenting findings in secure facilities and incorporating lessons learned into broader knowledge databases, which were intended to inform long-term preservation strategies, training, and potential application in future industrial or scientific projects. And this approach exemplifies the faction's systematic methodology, blending field recovery, laboratory analysis, documentation, and strategic decision-making to ensure that pre-war artifacts are preserved, understood, and leveraged in ways consistent with organizational philosophy. And in addition to scientific and resource-focused activities, Nuka-Cola also served a symbolic function within the Brotherhood, reinforcing pre-war cultural memory, continuity, and identity, as members frequently used rare bottles in ceremonial contexts, historical demonstrations, or educational programming for newer recruits, emphasizing the importance of understanding and respecting the artifacts of a lost civilization. And the presence of these beverages within Brotherhood archives provided tangible, multisensory connections to a pre-war world that no longer exists, allowing members to engage with history not merely as abstract knowledge, but as a lived, material experience. And this interaction between preservation, study, and symbolic reinforcement ensured that Nuka-Cola remained a relevant and meaningful component of the Brotherhood's cultural landscape, even decades after the Great War, bridging the gap between pre-war technological achievement, post-war survival imperatives, and the ongoing cultivation of faction identity. And in regions where the Brotherhood maintained vault-adjacent outposts, recovered Nuka-Cola often played a role in maintaining morale, demonstrating practical utility alongside its archival value, with bottles carefully rationed for strategic consumption, while most remained catalogued and protected, creating a dual system in which the beverage simultaneously served as a consumable resource and a preserved artifact. And this careful stewardship, scientific investigation, and strategic resource management reflect the broader patterns of the Brotherhood's approach to pre-war technology, illustrating how a seemingly mundane consumer product could be elevated to the status of research specimen, cultural artifact, and tactical resource. thereby integrating material culture into factional philosophy, operational planning, and post-war societal reconstruction, and the enduring legacy of Nuka-Cola within the Brotherhood's operations highlights the remarkable adaptability of both the beverage and the faction, demonstrating that the intersection of pre-war consumer ingenuity and post-war technological stewardship can produce outcomes that are simultaneously practical, scholarly, and culturally resonant, ensuring that Nuka-Cola continues to occupy a central role in the faction's preservation, study, and resource collection missions, serving as a unique lens through which to understand the interplay between science, culture, and survival in the Fallout universe. And ultimately, the Brotherhood of Steel's interaction with Nuka-Cola underscores the profound ways in which pre-war artifacts can shape post-apocalyptic strategy, identity, and scholarship, illustrating that even a soft drink, when meticulously engineered, widely distributed, and culturally embedded, can transcend its original function to become a subject of preservation, research, and enduring fascination, with implications for knowledge, survival, and culture that extend far beyond its immediate utility, cementing Nuka-Cola's status as a central artifact within both Wasteland material culture and the factional history of the Brotherhood of Steel. The interaction between Nuka-Cola products and radiation in the post-apocalyptic Wasteland represents one of the most intriguing and scientifically complex aspects of the beverage's legacy, highlighting the ways in which pre-war chemical engineering, isotopic experimentation, and carbonated formulation intersect with the extreme environmental conditions created by nuclear devastation. And while Nuka-Cola was originally engineered for taste, consistency, and durability, the Great War and subsequent radioactive fallout exposed bottles, syrup concentrates, and beverages to high levels of ionizing radiation, cosmic rays, and residual contamination, creating chemical and biological interactions that had profound implications for wasteland ecology, human physiology, and post-war scientific inquiry. And one of the most notable outcomes of this intersection is the luminescent property of Nuka-Cola Quantum, which persists due to isotopic additives that, while safe under pre-war handling standards, interact with ambient radiation to produce extended phosphorescence, serving both as a practical light source for wasteland scavengers and as a focal point for experimentation, folklore, and psychological effects, as the glowing beverage became emblematic of pre-war technological sophistication, post-war scarcity, and the strange, sometimes hazardous consequences of nuclear fallout. And beyond quantum, standard Nuka-Cola bottles exposed to radiation occasionally exhibited altered chemical stability, carbonation behavior, or flavor degradation, and studies conducted by scientists, scavengers, and factions like the Brotherhood of Steel revealed that long-term radiation exposure could induce molecular breakdown, create unusual chemical compounds, and, in rare instances, form reactive intermediates capable of producing physiological effects when consumed, a phenomenon that underscored both the resilience and unpredictability of pre-war chemical engineering under extreme post-war conditions. And in wasteland populations, anecdotal accounts suggest that prolonged consumption of irradiated Nuka-Cola could contribute to side effects ranging from nausea, fatigue, and mild gastrointestinal distress to unusual cellular responses, including minor mutations, heightened sensitivity to radiation, or temporary metabolic shifts. And while these effects were inconsistent, poorly documented, and highly variable depending on the variant, storage conditions, and individual physiology, they nevertheless contributed to the beverage's legendary status, fostering cautionary tales, scavenger lore, and experimental curiosity. And factions such as the Enclave, scientific enclaves, and independent researchers occasionally leveraged irradiated Nuka-Cola to study mutation mechanisms, chemical resilience, and potential applications for energy or biological experimentation, often combining pre-war documentation with field analysis to reconstruct molecular behavior under radiological stress. And such studies revealed that Nuka-Cola's original chemical formulation, including sugars, flavoring agents, carbonation stabilizers, and isotopic additives, contributed both to its durability and to its unusual interactions with residual radiation, demonstrating that the beverage functioned as a microcosm of pre-war chemical ingenuity interacting with post-war environmental extremity, and in some cases, experimental consumption by controlled groups allowed researchers to observe rare physiological responses, including minor mutations, temporary cellular hyperactivity, or subtle neurological effects, though ethical considerations, scarcity, and risk of contamination limited the extent and scope of such trials. And these observations contributed to Wasteland understandings of radiological exposure, mutation mechanisms, and the potential risks or benefits associated with irradiated consumables, forming a unique niche in post-apocalyptic scientific study. And the unpredictable nature of mutations and side effects also gave rise to superstition, cultural interpretation, and social norms regarding Nuka-Cola consumption, as some communities treated certain variants, glowing bottles, or long-buried caches as dangerous or sacred, while others celebrated rare mutations, attributing them to mystical or supernatural influences, a dual perception that reflects the intersection of science, folklore, and survival culture in a radiation-saturated world. And beyond human consumption, Nuka-Cola, exposed to radiation, influenced environmental chemistry and local ecosystems, as spilled syrup, broken bottles, and chemical residues interacted with soil, flora, and fauna, sometimes altering local flora growth patterns, attracting mutated wildlife, or creating microenvironments with unusual chemical properties, demonstrating that the beverage's post-war impact extended beyond immediate utility into ecological and biochemical dimensions. And Wasteland scavengers, adventurers, and factions often leveraged these environmental interactions to locate caches, anticipate mutated creature behavior, or experiment with hybridized chemical formulations, illustrating the complex interplay between pre-war industrial products and post-war environmental adaptation. And the study of these effects also informed the design of post-war consumables and safety protocols, as survivors learned to identify degraded bottles, recognize dangerous variants, and evaluate radiation-induced chemical changes, thereby integrating empirical observation with traditional knowledge, scavenger lore, and factional best practices, and in many cases, radiation-exposed Nuka-Cola became both a practical hazard and a symbolic object, embodying the danger, ingenuity, and resilience of pre-war culture, while simultaneously shaping post-war behavior, trade, and cultural memory. As luminescent quantum bottles, rare mutated variants, and contaminated caches served as markers for exploration, collection, and social interaction, driving narratives, quests, and the mythos of the Wasteland. And this fusion of chemistry, biology, and culture highlights the beverage's unique capacity to bridge scientific study, survival pragmatics, and symbolic meaning, functioning as a resource, a subject of inquiry, and a central node in human understanding of radiation, mutation, and environmental adaptation, and the legacy of Nuka-Cola's interactions with radiation continues to inform both in-game mechanics and fan interpretations, emphasizing the importance of chemistry, storage, isotopic science, and environmental context, while also reinforcing the beverage's status as a rare and culturally significant artifact capable of eliciting curiosity, caution, and reverence. And in the broader Fallout narrative, these radiation-induced mutations and side effects serve as a metaphor for the unintended consequences of technological progress, the resilience of human ingenuity, and the unpredictable interplay between human design and environmental catastrophe, as Nuka-Cola, designed for ordinary enjoyment, becomes a conduit for extraordinary post-apocalyptic phenomena, scientific study, and cultural storytelling, a testament to the enduring relevance, adaptability, and intrigue of a product that, even decades after the Great War, continues to shape physiology, chemistry, exploration, and myth across the irradiated landscapes of the Wasteland, and ultimately, the study of mutations and radiation effects associated with Nuka-Cola illuminates the complex interdependencies between pre-war engineering, post-war survival, and human curiosity, demonstrating that even a soft drink, when exposed to extreme conditions, can generate insights into chemical resilience, biological adaptation, and cultural significance, ensuring that Nuka-Cola remains an essential subject of both scientific examination and Wasteland legend, bridging the domains of consumption, mutation, and memory in a uniquely Fallout-specific manner. The mythology surrounding Nuka-Cola in the post-apocalyptic Wasteland is as rich, complex, and enduring as the beverage itself, encompassing urban legends, folk narratives, and cultural lore that have evolved over decades among scavengers, settlers, and wanderers, reflecting both the human need to interpret and make sense of scarce resources and the symbolic power of pre-war consumer culture. And perhaps the most iconic element of this mythology is Nuka-Cola Quantum, whose persistent blue luminescence has become the centerpiece of countless stories, quests, and oral traditions, inspiring awe, superstition, and fascination as Wastelanders attribute extraordinary qualities to the glowing beverage, ranging from temporary vitality, enhanced strength, or even mystical protection, to more fantastical claims, such as granting visions, bestowing luck, or serving as a beacon for lost travelers. And the allure of Nuka-Cola Quantum has given rise to elaborate scavenger lore, in which adventurers recount epic journeys to retrieve single bottles from irradiated ruins, derelict pre-war facilities, or hidden vault caches, often embellishing the feats with heroic exaggeration, perilous encounters, or encounters with mutated creatures, thereby transforming consumption into narrative performance and survival into legend. And these stories serve multiple functions in Wasteland society, acting as cautionary tales about the dangers of radiation, scarcity, and greed, while simultaneously fostering a sense of wonder, aspiration, and communal identity as groups of survivors, traders, and scavenger bands share, embellish, and pass down accounts of Nuka-Cola adventures, creating a shared cultural memory that connects disparate communities across time and geography. And the mythology extends beyond Quantum to encompass a wide variety of flavors, rare variants, and intact pre-war bottles, with each variant acquiring its own lore, symbolism, and perceived powers, such as Nuka-Cola Victory being associated with triumph, Nuka-Cola Cherry with nostalgia, or long-buried vault editions inspiring tales of hidden treasure, secret recipes, or mysterious vault experiments, thereby enriching the narrative ecosystem and reinforcing the centrality of Nuka-Cola in Wasteland identity and imagination. And urban legends frequently intersect with practical scavenging knowledge, as stories about irradiated caches, hidden stashes, or mutated guardians function both as entertainment and as heuristic guidance for survival, providing coded information about where to search, what risks to anticipate, and how to handle rare or potentially hazardous bottles, with the blending of fact, exaggeration, and myth creating a social mechanism for transmitting survival skills alongside cultural memory. And the role of Nuka-Cola mascots, pre-war advertisements, and memorabilia further amplifies the mythos, as animatronic figures, neon signage, and branded artifacts are interpreted through the lens of post-war imagination, often taking on exaggerated or mystical qualities in stories, symbolizing pre-war ingenuity, lost civilization, or mysterious forces at work in the irradiated landscape. And in addition to oral tradition, graffiti, murals, and improvised artwork frequently depict Nuka-Cola bottles, glowing quantum variants, or legendary events associated with the beverage, demonstrating how visual culture reinforces and perpetuates narrative myth, creating a multi-sensory and communal framework for legend making that spans generations and geographic regions. And the interplay between myth, scarcity, and experience further enhances the cultural resonance of Nuka-Cola, as tales of miraculous recovery, uncanny glow, or improbable survival serve to reinforce the beverage's symbolic potency, elevate the perceived value of rare bottles, and foster both social cohesion and competition among Wasteland communities, while also providing moral and ethical frameworks for behavior, such as sharing, hoarding, or risking danger in pursuit of legendary variants. And Nuka-Cola legends are often intertwined with broader Wasteland mythology, including accounts of Vault-Tec experiments, mutated creatures, irradiated zones, and enigmatic pre-war figures, situating the beverage within a larger narrative universe in which technology, survival, and human ingenuity intersect with mystery, danger, and folklore, thereby reinforcing the drink's central role in both practical survival and cultural imagination. And these stories are not static, but evolve with each retelling, incorporating new discoveries, Wasteland events, or creative embellishments, allowing the mythos to remain vibrant, relevant, and adaptive to changing circumstances, a dynamic process that mirrors the adaptive qualities of Nuka-Cola itself, which persists physically, culturally, and symbolically, despite decades of environmental, societal, and technological upheaval. And the legends of Nuka-Cola also play a critical role in shaping scavenger behavior, exploration patterns, and post-war economics, as the promise of rare, glowing, or intact bottles motivates quests, trade, and even conflict, while simultaneously reinforcing social hierarchies, reputation systems, and communal storytelling practices, creating a complex ecosystem in which myth, materiality, and survival intersect. And scholars, Wasteland chroniclers, and factional historians note that the persistence of Nuka-Cola mythos serves not merely as entertainment, but as a mechanism for preserving pre-war knowledge, cultural memory, and technological understanding, as the stories encode information about flavor, production methods, packaging, and environmental hazards, effectively transmitting lessons across generations and geographies. and the integration of myth with empirical observation, such as recognizing the luminescence of quantum or the integrity of rare variants, demonstrates the unique interplay between narrative, observation, and survival pragmatics, in which legend both informs and motivates behavior in practical and symbolic ways, and the phenomenon is further amplified by the rarity and desirability of intact pre-war bottles, which ensures that every discovery, anecdote, or encounter with Nuka-Cola reinforces the mythos, creating a feedback loop in which scarcity, storytelling, and cultural value mutually reinforce each other, solidifying the beverage's status as both a consumable artifact and a central element of Wasteland identity. And the enduring fascination with Nuka-Cola in folklore, legend, and mythology also highlights broader human tendencies to imbue objects with meaning, assign symbolic power to material culture, and create narrative frameworks for understanding risk, reward, and history, with Nuka-Cola serving as an archetypal example in the Fallout universe of how a consumer product can transcend its functional origins to become a locus of imagination, desire, and cultural continuity, and the beverage's glowing properties, iconic branding, and diverse variants ensure that even in the absence of pre-war society, it continues to inspire awe, legend, and storytelling, reinforcing connections between scavengers, survivors, and communities, while providing a tangible link to a lost civilization, technological mastery, and human creativity, and ultimately, the legends and mythology surrounding Nuka-Cola reveal the deep interconnection between material durability, cultural embedding, environmental adversity, and narrative construction, illustrating how a single product can shape not only consumption patterns, but also folklore, social identity, and post-apocalyptic imagination, ensuring that the mythic status of Nuka-Cola, particularly the luminescent quantum variant, remains a central, defining feature of both survivalist culture and the enduring lore of the Fallout universe, bridging the pre-war and post-war eras, consumption and storytelling, reality and legend, in a uniquely persistent and culturally resonant manner. The legacy of Nuka-Cola represents one of the most enduring and culturally significant threads in the tapestry of the Fallout universe, embodying not only the ingenuity, ambition, and consumer culture of pre-war America, but also the ways in which material artifacts, branding, and nostalgia can shape post-apocalyptic society, economy, and identity, and the beverage's influence extends far beyond its original function as a carbonated soft drink, persisting as a symbol of technological achievement, cultural memory, and human desire, reflecting the intersection of taste, marketing, and societal values in a world irrevocably transformed by nuclear catastrophe. And in the Wasteland, Nuka-Cola serves as a linchpin of economic exchange, functioning simultaneously as currency, trade commodity, collectible, and status symbol, with intact bottles, rare variants, and vault-specific editions commanding high value in barter networks, scavenger economies, and factional distribution, illustrating how a single consumer product can transcend utility to influence the organization, hierarchy, and survival strategies of post-war communities. And the cultural footprint of Nuka-Cola is further reinforced through its pervasive presence in mythology, legend, and popular lore, as stories of luminescent quantum bottles, heroic quests to recover rare variants, and encounters with derelict Nuka-World amusement parks circulate widely among Wastelanders, providing not only entertainment, but also a framework for understanding risk, reward, and historical continuity, embedding the beverage deeply into the collective imagination of survivors, traders, and adventurers alike. And this integration of product, narrative, and culture reflects a broader phenomenon in which pre-war consumer artifacts achieve post-apocalyptic significance by functioning as both material resource and symbolic touchstone, preserving connections to a lost civilization while simultaneously shaping new social practices, moral norms, and experiential realities. And Nuka-Cola's influence on wasteland economies is multifaceted, as it enables trade across long distances, facilitates social negotiation, and creates hierarchies of value based on rarity, condition, and provenance, with factions such as the Brotherhood of Steel, raider groups, independent merchants, and scavenger bands all recognizing the beverage's utility as both consumable and cultural artifact. And the economic dynamics surrounding Nuka-Cola often incentivize exploration, risk-taking, and strategic planning, as acquiring rare variants or intact caches can confer not only material advantage but also social prestige, while simultaneously reinforcing the beverage's status as a central pillar of post-war cultural and economic infrastructure. And beyond immediate economic considerations, Nuka-Cola functions as a potent symbol of pre-war America, encapsulating the optimism, technological ambition, and consumerist ethos of an era that prized innovation, leisure, and brand loyalty. With its iconic red and white branding, distinctive bottle design, and marketing campaigns evoking a society that combined scientific ingenuity with entertainment, spectacle, and mass appeal, thereby allowing post-war inhabitants to engage with the past not merely as history, but as a tangible, experiential, and emotionally resonant artifact. And the beverage's enduring presence in the ruins of cities, vaults, and amusement parks serves as a material reminder of both human achievement and vulnerability, a duality that underscores the fragility of civilization, the resilience of cultural memory, and the capacity of ordinary objects to acquire extraordinary significance in the aftermath of catastrophe. And the symbolic weight of Nuka-Cola is further amplified by its connection to leisure, recreation, and social ritual, particularly through the legacy of Nuka-World amusement parks, pre-war promotional campaigns, and collectible memorabilia, which collectively created a cultural ecosystem in which consumption, identity, and storytelling were inseparable, establishing the beverage as a cultural touchstone, whose meaning extends far beyond its immediate taste or nutritional value. And this layered significance ensures that Nuka-Cola remains relevant not only in the material sense, but also in the cognitive and emotional lives of wasteland survivors, influencing social norms, intergroup relations, and even ethical considerations regarding sharing, hoarding, and preservation, while providing a framework for collective memory, intergenerational storytelling, and post-apocalyptic identity formation. And the legacy of Nuka-Cola is also evident in the ways that factions, traders, and individuals integrate it into survival strategies, scientific inquiry, and cultural practices, from the Brotherhood of Steel's methodical preservation and analysis of rare bottles, to scavenger lore regarding quantum's luminescence, mutations associated with irradiated beverages, and legendary caches hidden in irradiated zones, reflecting a continuity of interest and influence that spans both practical and symbolic domains. And in some cases, Nuka-Cola serves as a bridge between pre-war technology and post-war adaptation, providing insights into chemical engineering, carbonation techniques, isotopic science, and packaging innovations, while simultaneously shaping cultural, social, and economic behavior, demonstrating the multifaceted ways in which a consumer product can maintain relevance across historical, environmental, and societal transformations. And the beverage's iconic status has led to its inclusion in educational, ceremonial, and symbolic practices within the Wasteland, as survivors, factions, and communities utilize Nuka-Cola to commemorate history, teach lessons about pre-war ingenuity, or reinforce social cohesion, embedding the product within narratives of identity, morality, and collective experience. And this continued cultural resonance is bolstered by Nuka-Cola's role in interactive myth-making, with legends, urban stories, and oral histories circulating widely, providing both entertainment and functional guidance for exploration, scavenging, and survival, illustrating the beverage's capacity to mediate knowledge, experience, and imagination in ways that extend far beyond material consumption. And the persistence of Nuka-Cola in popular consciousness also reflects broader themes of nostalgia, human ingenuity, and the interplay between technology and society, as the beverage embodies a pre-war vision of progress, leisure, and interconnectedness, while its survival into the wasteland demonstrates resilience, adaptability, and symbolic potency, allowing post-war communities to maintain a connection to the past, even as they navigate the challenges of a radically transformed world. And ultimately, the legacy of Nuka-Cola is a testament to the enduring power of cultural artifacts to shape economy, identity, and imagination, demonstrating that the intersection of taste, design, marketing, and narrative can create a product whose significance transcends its original function, influencing social structures, mythologies, and economic systems for generations. And in the context of the Fallout universe, Nuka-Cola exemplifies the profound ways in which pre-war consumerism, technological innovation, and cultural embedding continue to resonate in the post-apocalyptic landscape, ensuring that a simple carbonated beverage remains a central emblem of human ambition, resilience, and cultural memory, a symbol of pre-war America whose glow, flavor, and legacy persist in shaping the wasteland's economy, identity, and storytelling long after the fall of civilization. And the study, collection, and mythologizing of Nuka-Cola illustrate the enduring human impulse to preserve, interpret, and celebrate the material traces of a lost world, making the beverage not merely a relic of the past, but an active agent in the ongoing construction of post-war culture, survival strategy, and imaginative life, cementing its place as one of the most iconic, influential, and culturally resonant artifacts in the Fallout universe. A drink that, in every bottle, encapsulates history, legend, economy, and identity in ways that continue to define the Wasteland experience, bridging centuries of human experience and ensuring that Nuka-Cola remains a vibrant, meaningful, and inextricable component of the post-apocalyptic landscape.